Hello Taurus friends, I'm Annie Botticelli and welcome to my Taurus May 2021 Astrology Must Knows Horoscope Report. It's eclipse time and radical changes in the air. We're going to talk about what areas of life are likely to be affected by those eclipses for you. We're also going to talk about other things to celebrate and other things to watch out for this month. This is a month that is split in half with how the energies are. The first half of the month is part of this wonderful open spree between the middle of March and the middle of May of a complete open time for business launches, engagements, weddings, anything having to do with contracts, agreements, forward movement in a crazy awesome way that has been long overdue, anything having to do with big decisions or moves. There's so much amazing energy for that. And just clarity and being able to make plans. That's something else that we had been lacking prior to the middle of March for a long time. And so in this nice window, still through the first half of May, you've got that, okay? So this is really nice. It's really helpful. And, you know, I expect you to be very productive, which is one of the Taurus favorite things, right? Is to get stuff done, keep everything organized, have everything managed. And this is going to be a really great time. Something else to celebrate about this time is that you've got planets moving through Taurus. Now you've got a little longer of Mercury and Venus still here in May. You had that blessing in April as well. But with these other personal planets moving through your sign, that means you're getting kisses from those placements. So Venus kisses can be little boosts to your money or your self-esteem, you know, asking for raises, getting some savings, extra income, things like that. The Mercury boosts can be good news, important information coming in, progress on writing projects, finishing up paperwork, clearing clutter off your desk, things like that. Mercury can be really helpful for, as well as social interactions. This month and this time is huge for the social arena as it is for the travel arena. Now, not everybody in the world is going to have everything be super open at this time, but the stars are pointing towards a very dramatic increase in the potentials of travel and social interactions. Now, in the absence of there being, you know, any of those things allowed, depending on where you are and what's going on at that time, these things might be virtual, okay, you know, but expect to be chatting with friends, chatting with acquaintances, Zoom meetings like crazy, taking classes, studying, teaching. That energy is really coming up super strong, and it's an amazing time for that. Especially the first part of the month is extra wonderful for needing to concentrate on, you know, with the intention of having a certain outcome, like studying for tests, you know, finals, midterm, or I don't know, whatever I was going to say midterms, but probably that's not timing that way. But, you know, anything with your studies. Now, as the Taurus energies start to wear off and we get more into Gemini, it's going to be a little bit harder to stay focused, but any flexible study and flexible projects are going to be, you know, the kind of things open up in a way where being less defined with your plans is going to be how you most progress in everything. Okay, so the thing to watch out for is mid-month, around May 16th through the rest of the month, and actually for all of June into the first few days of July. Expect plan changes, expect things that were certain to be called into question, expect to be backtracking and going back over things or fixing things, editing things, wrapping up unfinished business. Also expect that if you're traveling, the types of travels you might have could come suddenly, where it's like all of a sudden, things open up, now you can go, you know, or you might be making plans to travel in a different time, but you're trying to work out the plans at this time. But it's very important to know that anything called into question is going to be tested. If the situation passes those tests, then, you know, once we're getting towards the end of June into July, you might get your clarity back, or things might start to gel on the topic of what that was called into question. If you're traveling in Mercury retrograde, which many people are going to be, partly because Mercury retrograde brings that, partly because the stars are opening up for that kind of thing, and partly because the retrograde of Mercury is actually in the sign of Gemini, which rules, you know, which Mercury rules. So it really increases the chance for moving around in one way or another, and topics of mobility, whether it's through your vehicle, through your physical mobility, those type of topics coming up in a big way. So in general, Taurus energies like to have things fixed, everything set, everything worked out beforehand, and that's a wonderful trait. And at the same time, as these energies really in Gemini start taking over mid-month and the retrograde starts taking over, just know that things are going to change. So if you have to make a flight arrangement, probably the gate's going to change once you're at the airport. Probably the flight times, the airport might change those times. Maybe the guidelines about COVID testing or not testing or all of that kind of stuff might change. You know, if you're taking a driving trip, get your car extra checked out, have backup plans, have all the phone numbers that you need in case something comes up ready, because that's just the type of stuff that goes on. In Mercury retrograde, things come back from the past to be looked at, for better and worse. So unresolved things can come up, or if something was pending, something can come in, you know, that you were waiting for news on, you could get that news. Sometimes people start seeing things break down, like their dishwasher and then their car both have issues and they have to do something with them. So if you have something pending that you know is going to need, you're going to need a new one, that timeline between the middle of March and the middle of May is actually ideal for making big purchases, like a new car, like a new device, something like that. It's not that you can't make those purchases mid-month and into June. It's just that you're not seeing clearly, and making an agreement or going into a contract or spending a bunch of money in the retrograde, unless you're completely forced to do it, you know, you just don't have all the information generally in that time frame. So if something starts coming up in the second half of May or June and you've got to make a new purchase, if you can hold out until July, the energies might be more clear, and the planets will be much more conducive for your placement by those times as well, because as the water energies take over, that flows much better for the earth energies. You know, these air energies are a little bit wacky for Taurus placements because they don't speak your language. Taurus likes, you know, set, clear, succinct communication. And Gemini is not giving that. It's, you know, it can be flaky. People can, you know, and I know Taurus people don't love for people to be flaky and to cancel things, and, you know, but that stuff is going to be increased in likelihood. So if you know it going into it, then you can relax. It's kind of like somebody telling you it might rain, then you know to bring your umbrella. So I'm telling you, probably plans are going to be canceled, called into question, changed. Things could come all of a sudden where you could go on a trip when you weren't even planning it. People who were supposed to follow through with things may not. Things that were moving forward in a fast way might slow down. And all of that's okay, because there are different times for different things. And when you can align with what is going on with the natural rhythms, things are much easier for you. Okay, so now you kind of have this picture. You know, we're of the open window between the middle of March and the middle of May, then kind of slow downward, inward and backward, second half of May, all of June, early July. Then July, August, and the first half of September will be open up wide again. And it's possible that in May you might be making your travel plans for that later window, in which case there's just amazing energy around being super productive again, you know, so you've got this ebb and flow. Okay, so I want to talk about birthdays also. I want to wish you all who are going to have a birthday in May, happy birthday. And of course, to those of you who are April born as well, happy birthday to you if you're watching this early. Birthdays are times where the universe is much more receptive to your wishes, hence birthday wishes, which are astrologically based. So you get your wishes, you say them out loud, you feel them as if they've already come true. You can watch my video about this. If you search for Annie making wishes come true, I think even if you don't put my last name, it will come up, and you can see how you can maximize your birthday wishes. But do know that if you're watching for Taurus rising, Taurus moon, or even Mercury, Venus, or Mars, whatever Taurus placement you have that you're watching for, this video is for you. And this blessing that when the sun passes over your Taurus placement is still, you know, a little rebirth and, you know, a regeneration and a chance to reevaluate things and get set on a different schedule. Now, you may or may not know that I've been a coach for almost 20 years. I started doing coaching work even before astrology started to come in, and astrology started to, you know, take over as sort of the forefront of my coaching work. But I'm giving you all, you know, ways to improve your life. And that's the point of my doing my work, is that the more you understand about what's going on, the more you can have an easier time of it because you're prepared. So along those lines, I also like to give you coaching tips, and specifically for Taurus. So I'm going to give you some strategies here, and by explaining how Taurus energy works, and if you understand how this works and then use these recommendations, it can really help to accentuate the strong points of Taurus and to offset any of the blocks or obstacles or stagnation that come from the placements, okay? So one thing to note is that Taurus rules the throat, Taurus rules the neck. You already know this if you know anything about medical astrology, that, or just your life, that you probably have, many of you have problems with your neck, your vertebrae here, your muscles, your throat, things like that, your thyroid. So you might need extra care in those placements. Doing neck stretches throughout the day. You can, look up neck stretches. Something that I like to do is like hold on to a desk or something so that my shoulder stays down, and then just like lean slowly and just let gravity kind of pull this down and be pulling this. Now, I'm not a doctor, so you've got to make sure that doing these types of things are okay for you, but daily stretches to your neck, if you have a Taurus placement, can really, really, really help you. Gentle daily practices. Also, having warm drinks throughout the day, or hot drinks that aren't scalding, to help relax the muscles of your throat. And you can have herbal teas that help to support your immune system and your respiratory system, or that soothe your throat. Those can be very helpful for you, especially if you're in a situation where you have to communicate a lot. And the last coaching tip that I want to give you for Tauruses is, because this energy is fixed meaning, and you know what that means being a Taurus, right? You can get very, very, very focused on one thing, for better and worse. This really helps you because you're consistent. Generally, Tauruses, show up. They're stable and predictable and consistent, and they're great with perseverance. But it can also cause stagnation in your life to be so fixed. So one thing you can do to shake things up in your brain, which can shake things up in your perceptions, which can shake things up in your life and open up and welcome new experiences and break out of a rut, is to do something as simple as taking a different route to work every day, or a different route for your, taking your kids to school or going to the store, or if you walk on the same path every day, or if you do the same exercises something about doing something different every day than you usually do. Really, and there's a lot of scientific support for this, that is really good for your brain, but it's also specifically good for the wiring of Taurus to do this, okay? So that's something that can help you, and can also help you be more flexible as these eclipse changes come, because the eclipses are going to bring wild news. So everybody is going to see an increase in notable news about Sagittarius topics, because the May 26th lunar eclipse at 6 degrees of Sagittarius is going to bring this news in, could have already started bringing it in April. So you might see things about immigration, teaching, learning. You might find the perfect education program for yourself or one of your kids. You could start teaching or step into, that type of role, or writing or publishing, or your church, working with your church, or spiritual processes, anything having to do with immigration. I think I mentioned that. Yeah. And then also, of course, I've already talked about all of the Gemini related things with travel and cars and devices and all that. Well, that's also going to be supercharged, because in June we have an eclipse in Gemini. So you have to be extra careful when you're driving, because people are going to be scattered. It increases the odds for mix-ups and accidents and things like that. And it's not something to be scared of, but it is something to be aware of. So it could increase the chance for car accidents or dropping your phone in the toilet and things like that. Because even though the Gemini eclipse isn't until June, we feel them 4 to 6 weeks before. So that puts May as a time where you could be feeling manifestations from the May eclipse and the June eclipse. So a lot of changes. And a lot of times these are major trajectory shifts. Okay, so you can also see my eclipses in Sagittarius and my eclipses in Gemini videos. You can search for them organically, Annie Botticelli eclipses in Gemini, Annie Botticelli eclipses in Sagittarius, or you can go to my YouTube homepage and see them on the eclipse playlist. But I definitely suggest you watch each of those videos, because I go into all of the ways that I've seen each of those types of eclipses manifest, and that's going to be true for all Tauruses. Now, the fields of life that are going to be accentuated from the house perspective for Taurus placements, for all Tauruses, I'm putting you on the list to watch eclipses in Libra or the 7th house. Okay, so again, you can search for Annie Botticelli, eclipses in Libra. I'll explain why this house is being accentuated in a minute. But this has to do with relationships. So you could see major endings or major new beginnings in your relationship space, key people leaving your life, or key people coming in, or key people coming back from the past. You can have a helper or some person that you've needed to work on a project or for a specific purpose in your life come in. And that is a that's for all Taurus placements. So those of you who are in the early degree Taurus placement, so basically April born through the first couple of days of May, you all also watch my eclipses in Scorpio video because you all will have the eclipse in your 8th house. But even though the early degree, so 0 through 11 degrees, if you're watching for another Taurus placement besides your sun, even though it's going to be in the 8th house for you all, it's still on the line there, close enough to the 7th house, which is why I'm having everybody watch the Libra. And so if you're a person who knows about astrology, you might be wondering, if Sagittarius rules the 8th house of the Taurus placements, then why are you telling us that the eclipse energy could be in the 7th house? And that is because in the Placidus chart, which is the type of chart I use, some astrologers use whole house charts, some astrologers use Placidus, many astrologers use Placidus. And that will be going on and you might not even know this, but in the Placidus chart, the later your degree in the sign, the more the energies shift backwards. Okay, so it's only those of you in the April born first couple of days of May that will have this eclipse actually in the Scorpio house. It's going to jump back into the 7th house for those of you after that. But like I said, it's going to be on the line. Okay, so that's why. Now, so you all in the early degree or 0 to 11 degrees, May born April born or early May, 0 to 11 degrees or so, watch the eclipses in Scorpio video. And that is more relationship stuff, but there are a lot of other things in there that you can check out in the video. Okay, so now I want to talk more about the eclipse cycle of when this happened last, so you can look for themes in your life that came up in the years in the past, when this eclipse cycle started last year, when the hot spots were, some other manifestations. I'll recap some things about the Sagittarius Gemini eclipses. Yeah, so we'll end off with that special extra eclipse segment. The reason why I focus so much on eclipses during eclipse time is because they bring radical change, crazy trajectory shifts where you're going in one direction, then all of a sudden, almost overnight, you're heading in a completely different direction. Dramatic endings, exciting new beginnings, clearing up of karma in a major way where you feel like, wow, something has occurred and now certain patterns are just behind you, and brand new ways of being open up. It's a very exciting time. It can also be a very stressful time, and some of the changes that come are not welcome. Some of the changes that come are things that you've been trying to manifest for sometimes your whole life. And so it's just a very, very powerful time of extreme energies. The principle in physics that talks about matter never being created nor destroyed, that it simply changes form, is very evident at eclipse time. And we can see it happening in some common things, like for instance, a grandparent passes away and a grandchild is born, or, something notable goes on like that type of thing. Somebody retires, but then they start their post-retirement, new project. And it's like the energy of what is removed doesn't leave. It just changes into this other form in this brilliant new beginning. And so you will either be a person who is having that happen in this, especially May, June timeframe, or you'll be a person who's watching people around you have crazy things going on, and in some cases holding space for them, because it can be, even positive changes can be pretty stressful or a lot to take in as you're going through a major transition. And a lot of times, if you're not the person going through that change, you're holding space for the other person, meaning you're there for them, you're holding their hand through it, or you're assisting them in some way. You can usually tell if you're going to be the person who's going through the changes or the person holding the space by the degree to which the sign and degree of the eclipse hits your personal planets. But since we have so many personal planets, we can't do that justice in general readings, but we can talk about some of that, which I tend to do, in the horoscopes. But some people go through both of it, where they're holding space for other people who are going through a lot, and they themselves are going through a lot of change. Okay, so those are some must knows. Now, just to give you a little perspective about this particular eclipse cycle, the Sagittarius Gemini eclipse cycle. The last time we had this eclipse cycle was March 2011 through August 2012. And now it started again on May 2020 through January 2022. So it doesn't mean that everything that happened between March 2011 and August 2012 will occur again. It means that the things that occurred in that time that were related to the signs or houses that were accented for you are going to be themes that come up again. If something bad happened then, it doesn't mean something bad will happen now. It's just the areas of life that are activated, which of course I'm talking more about in, this May and June report to tell you what areas of life will be active for you from the perspective of your sun or rising or whatever you're watching for. But in general, you can think back to that time and then notice what similar themes started to come up again around May of 2020 that have been going on. Now, the other must know about eclipses is it's like an eclipse cycle has several periods of time where there is the eclipse season, where everything gets heated up and right in the forefront, and then it kind of fades into the backdrop. And then the eclipse season happens again every 6 months. This goes on, and then it heats up, and then it kind of fades in the backdrop. So you'll also have noticed that whatever themes have come up for you, we had things that came up May, June, July of 2020. It's kind of like a pot boiling. The eclipses in the astrological perspective are not like they are in the astronomical perspective. From the astronomical perspective, they happen at that time and they're done. From the astrological perspective, there's this cycle that's working in the backdrop, and it's working on areas of your life, and it's active, and then it fades in the backdrop and it's active. Okay, so this is how I like to see this, is that in May of last year, of 2020, we had the heat go up. And then in June and July, it was like a rapid boil. And then you took the heat off, and then it kind of like faded out into the backdrop. And then in November and December of 2020, the heat was on again. But then, in January and then into February, March, April, we're like kind of down where the heat is off. Now, towards the end of April, the heat started coming on again of this 2021, and then May and June we're at a full boil again with the eclipses. Then into July it sort of starts to fade back down with the heat taken off into the backdrop, and then towards the end of the year we'll have our final Gemini Sagittarius heat up and then fade out into January 2022 rather, and it will be done and we'll be on to the next cycle. Okay, so in general, anything involving cars, transportation, including, guarding yourself while you're driving. You have to be extra careful during Gemini and Sagittarius eclipse cycles, because it tends to highlight transportation. And so that can bring, accidents or things with cars or vehicles or walking or your mobility. You don't have to be afraid. It's just to become more aware. So anything having to do with how we share information and how we take in information and how we share it. Education, we can see since last year, we thought that it was COVID that did this, right? But it was really a part of an astrological cycle that was bringing the topic of education and how we are getting educated into the forefront. So now we have new breakthroughs and new storylines with how we're getting educated, kids and adults. Also, how we're commuting or not commuting to work. So you can see as of, the spring of 2020, the fall for those of you down under, and now in the spring of 2021, in the fall for those of you down under, where we're back in this, okay, what are we going to do with the kids in school? Who's going to wind up staying home? What are we doing with work? People are working from home. All of this is very much related to this eclipse cycle. It's more related to this eclipse cycle than it is COVID. COVID is part of the storyline, but COVID is also astrological. And if you want more information about that, search for Annie Botticelli coronavirus and watch my very in-depth video talking about how astrological cycles are really at the source of the things that we think are related to COVID. COVID is part of the astrology, not the cause of everything that's going on. So in any case, we will see things involving international topics. Immigration has been a very hot topic since last year, especially. And we're seeing the storylines of that unfold. Anything having to do with relationships with different countries and our international business. All of that is very much related to the eclipse cycle of the Sagittarius Gemini. So all signs will be seeing those storylines heating up into the forefront. Something else that is a major must know about eclipse time and eclipses in general is that the eclipse cycle matches the North and South node transit. So for those of you who know about North and South nodes, maybe you didn't know that there was a direct relationship between the eclipse cycle and the North and South nodes. They're both running along the ecliptic. And the ecliptic is this is a very important area of focus in astrology, because this has to do with your karma and your dharma. So the difficult patterns that you brought in, whether it was through your own soul's, behaviors and journey, or whether it was through ancestral things that have gone on in your particular DNA, or whether it's the human consciousness that's undergoing evolution, all of those karmic pieces are represented in the South Node energies. And then the North Node energies speak to our highest expression this lifetime, our highest evolution, our dharma, what we came here to do. So eclipse time always is very rich with opportunities to clear karma, clear old patterns, clear programming that's not working, and set up new wiring, solidify the trace of a suggestion that's sitting there waiting to be actualized in the form of our highest destiny, taking steps into making those pathways be solid and more of your norm. So it's very much a time where you have opportunities to step into your highest expression in major ways and let go of major old patterns and become revitalized and have your life just opened up in ways that you've only dreamed of. So it's a very exciting time. I mean, what is there in the mind of the seeker that could be more important than stepping into your highest destiny and your highest expression this lifetime, right? And so the eclipses bring us on there, fate points, fate meetings, fate, endings, divine, destined, or fated endings, fated beginnings, things that have that sense of like, wow, this is really fated here. This is really destined. You'll feel that the energy of synchronicity moving you in these magical, ways that you can't, you have to acknowledge that, wow, obviously there's something else at work here. It's a very magical time, and it's a very intense time, and your nervous system will be under duress, and you'll probably need more sleep, but it may be harder to sleep, and you might need more of your nervous system support and your adrenal support, and those are ways that you can really maximize this time, because the better rested you are and the more your body has the nutrition that it needs, the easier it is for you to manage what's going on. Sometimes someone will say, well, what do these supplements and these things you talk about have to do with astrology? And in my mind, they have everything to do with astrology, because if you're trying to have the best possible experience, and you know that there are intense times coming, how you experience those intense times is going to be affected tremendously by the state of your adrenals and the state of the rest of your whole nervous system and your other systems. So if they are working well and well supported, then as the stresses come, it's easier for you to step into your superhero self and have an easier experience of the challenges that come. And the challenges, like I said, could be super positive, but still challenges just the same. Like, let's say someone buys their, dream house, and that certainly could happen now. Well, the leaving of the old house, the actual move, the logistics, there is stress involved even in the best of changes. And those are the types of things that are going to be occurring in this May-June timeframe in a very big way. If you would like even more information on how you can maximize the starry possibilities, click on the little arrow underneath the video that says more, and that little arrow click will reveal all the notes below the video. Most of the time that I spend working is spent doing free offerings, and you can see what all those are and get the links directly to them in the notes below the video. First thing to do is go to anniehelpsyou.com, sign up for my free email newsletter. Not only will you get my happy scopes, a sneak peek into the highlights of all of the months of 2021. Right now, you can see all of that immediately, but you'll also get a more detailed overview of each month, 1 month early, the sweet and salty dates of the aspects, what you can expect from them, and a general write-up of the month ahead delivered into your inbox 1 month early. You also get a free sign-on bonus called Shine, which is my virtual 28-day coaching program. And this is very, very, very detailed, and it can really help support you in your conscious evolution and breaking out of old patterns. So you get all of that when you sign up at anniehelpsyou.com. You'll see it right on the front page. It'll say, "Hi, friend," and then it'll have space for your name and email address. The next thing to make sure to do is go to my school, lumelife.com, L-U-M-E life.com. It's Luminous Life Multiversity, and I've got free courses there, including one to help you ramp up your abundance called Unleash Your Money Magnet. You can also see my paid courses there, including my crazy comprehensive astrology program called Becoming a Professional Astrologer Mastery course. If you'd like to do astrology as part or all of your professional offering, or just become adept enough for your own process or to help other people, you will love, love, love this course, especially if you resonate with my work. And you can see that at lumelife.com, and plus the other courses there. Also, go to cozybysweetstarlight.com. That's my other beautiful website where I and a few amazing up-and-coming bloggers that I have selected to be part of this with me are giving you amazing offerings every month, and a lot of it is astrology kissed. So herbal teas for the signs and the sun's movement, hypnosis, healing frequencies for each sign. You'll love this site. It's called cozybysweetstarlight.com. Then also, don't forget about my books. I write books as well. I've got a book called Radical Prayer, Transform Your Life and the World in 28 Days. And this is a beautiful book of prayers and affirmations that you can use over a moon cycle or however you're drawn to use it. Then my very, very in-depth book called Planetology, How to Align with the Natural Rhythms of the Universe. And it does exactly that. So it's a very detailed, long, comprehensive book to help you align with the starry rhythms. And another very exciting thing that I want to share this month is it's the month of my boy, Seamus. We call him Seamus Blue Moon. It's his birthday in May, and he is having some offerings that are starting to come out. So you can see some work of his artwork in the link below. In the future, you will see him teaching courses at my school. He's working on a course now. So he's also a rune master, an amazing reader of runes. So you'll start to see more by him coming soon. And so this is his beautiful launch into the public. So you can check out some of his artwork in the link below in the More button. So I hope you have a wonderful month, and I'll see you next month. Bye.